Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Hope by the grace of Almighty Allah you are very well. Most welcome to my class. This is 8th chapter of statistics second paper for the students of class 12 especially, and this is the first lecture of the chapter. This is Muhammad Ashraf Lazim, lecturer in statistics, is going to deliver the lecture. The name of the chapter is sampling. So we have to know what is sampling. Before going to define the sampling, we have to know some definition of the chapters, some key points of the chapters. Actually, today's lecture, I discussed the very most important definition of the chapter only, and to know the chapter, you must know about the key points, that is the definition of the chapters. Firstly, population. Actually, it's a English word in normal sense. What is the meaning of population? We know population means human being. But in statistics, population doesn't mean only human being. It's a set of all elements. It's a set of all elements. And first, that sampling, the chapter is highly related to research. So a researcher want to research on a specific topic. So he needs the raw materials, and that is why he has to collect the materials. And all materials related to the research fully create a set, and this set is normally population. So here population is defined such way that population is the entire set of all elements in the field of inquiry. Population be the entire set of all elements in the field of inquiry. Now, the second topic, sample. Sample. What is sample? It's a known word to us. It's a popular word to us. Sample. In our daily life, many of times we pronounce sample. Anyway, sample firstly a part of population. It's a part of a population. But the representative, it must be the representative part of the population. That is, in a population there are a lot of elements. The sample, it must is in the population. That is, we may say that sample be a subset of a population. Anyway, simply we can define samples as way that sample be the representative part of a population. Now, the name of the chapter is sampling. We are going to define sampling. So, before going to define sampling, we learn two topics which are population and sample. Now, sampling. Actually, when we define sample, I mentioned that sample is nothing but a subset of a population. So, all elements of sample must be in population. Now, from population, we collect the sample in many ways, and this collecting system, that is the sample in which way we collect the population, that is sampling. Now, definition of sampling is that sampling is a method of drawing of sample from the population. Method of collecting a sample from the population. Method of drawing a sample from the population. So sample is a method of drawing or collecting a sample from the population. So finally, sampling is a procedure, sampling is a system, sampling is a method to collect the sample from the population. Now, how many types of sampling? There are, in statistics, mainly there are two types of sampling, which are random sampling or judgment sampling. The another name of random sampling is probability sampling, and the another name of judgment sampling is purposive sampling. So there are two types of sampling, which are probability sampling or random sampling, and judgment sampling or purposive sampling. Very most important topic or word is census. It's actually called census survey. Actually called census survey or simply census. In our country, Bangladesh, in 1974, firstly, the population census was done. Secondly, in 1981, thirdly, in 1991, fourthly, 2001, and fifth time it was 2011. And there is a possibility that in 2000 this survey. And here census means population calculation, population collection. So census, the definition of census, an investigator in which information is collected from all elements of a population is called census. So if an investigator collect the elements of population individually, one by one, this system is known as census. Now, sample survey. There is a difference in between census and sample survey. In census, we understood that from each element of from each and every population individually, we collect the information. But in sample survey, to make a quick information about population, we draw sample survey, and there is very positive and negative side, merits and demerits, or advantages or disadvantages in both census and sample survey. Now, the definition of sample survey is an investigator in which information is collected only from the elements included in a sample is known as sample survey. I repeat, an investigator in which information is collected only from the elements included in a sample is known as sample survey. If you want to know any quick information about population, we use sample survey in lieu of census. So there is a difference in between census and sample survey. Sometimes census is better and dependable, more reliable, but sample survey in one sense better because when population is very large in that moment, it is quite difficult and expensive to collect the information by census survey. But when the population is small, population size is small, in that moment, it is better to draw the census survey. But when the population is very large in that moment, to reduce the expensive, to reduce the money or time in that moment, it is better to sample survey. Anyway, we understood what is census and what is sample survey and what are the differences between census and sample survey. It will be discussed in my second lecture, inshallah. Okay, dear students, parameter. I'd like to say parameter and statistic. There are two words. These are related to population and sample. One is related to population, another one is related to sample. For sure that parameter is related to population and statistic is related to sample. And the word parameter is known to us when we discussed about the distribution, mainly binomial distribution, Poisson distribution, and normal distribution. And we know that what is parameter and how many parameters of that distributions. Now, parameter is repeated. Parameter is a numerical characteristics of a population. Parameter is a numerical characteristics of a population. For example, population mean, population variance, correlation. These are the parameters. Like the parameters of binomial distribution are n and p. The parameter of normal distribution is mu and sigma, where mu be the mean and sigma be the standard deviation and sigma square be the variance. And the parameter of Poisson distribution is m, normally denoted by m, which be the mean and variance also. So parameter is the population mean, population variance. Since the topic is related to population, that is why mean and variance must be the mean and variance of population. So I repeat the parameter. Parameter is a numerical characteristics of a population. The example is population mean, population variance, correlation, etc. Now, statistic. Just now we have discussed parameter, which be the numerical characteristics. Statistic is also a numerical characteristics. So this is the numerical characteristics of sample, but parameter be the numerical characteristics of population. So statistic is a numerical characteristics of a population. For example, sample mean, sample variance be the practical examples of statistic. Now, sampling error. It is very simple that if you do something in that moment, error must be erased. So sampling, this is an activity. This is a system to collect the sample from the population. So when you collect the sample from population, then some problems, some errors must be arised. So sampling error is the difference between the statistic of sample and the parameter of that population. Now, sampling, what is sampling error? It's a difference between the statistic of sample and the parameter of that population. Now, what is non-sampling error? Except sampling error, there is non-sampling error. Since in sampling, uh, except sampling error, others error in statistics is called non-sampling. In statistics, that means in statistics, there are a lot of sampling errors, and where there are some sampling errors, against these sampling errors, or up, except the sampling errors, in statistics there are rest of the errors, which is known as non-sampling error. So this is all about today's topic. Actually, there are a lot of important topics I said, and I would like to repeat that these topics are highly important, and it's a new chapter to you. And to know about the chapter highly, you must know about this topic smoothly. I'd like to say sample size. It was mentioned, it was discussed when we discussed about the different types of distribution like binomial, Poisson, and normal distribution. And in that moment, it was mentioned that when the sample size is large, that is, large means here above 30, 30 and above. The researcher, the statistician considered when the elements of a sample are 30 or above, then it is large sample. Sample size, that means how many elements are in the sample. And small sample, that is if the number of elements of the sample are up to 29 or that is less than 30, then it is considered as small sample. So there are rest of the important topics are pilot survey and many other important topics which I would like to discuss in my second lecture, and I'm highly interested to explain the chapter within 4 or 5 lectures, and that will be highly sufficient, I think so. I'd like to discuss the gist of the chapter in my this type of recording classes, and I hope the students, if you follow the lectures, you must be able to answer a complete creative question from the chapter. This is very easy, and from the chapter main part. So learn about the topics, and I'd like to conclude here. No more today. Dear students, thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.